Thanks for patience for people. We're trying to figure out where the session ends and where we start. Let me just quickly maybe start wrapping up around the things that where we are from the scope perspective for the project. As we talked about, this is what we had put the plan together. What we created the charter in the beginning. Now we are at a stage where we increase the industry participation, and as we see, we have now scope defined where we are, what work we are going to do together as a project, and we really look forward to basically working together for getting the specifications contributed into this community now, so that we can get the hardware specifications, software specification, benchmarks, and metrics. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going into the details. Perhaps let me hand off to Samir as we start getting ready for the actual work in the work group now.
Yeah, and if you are confused, can you go back? If you're confused, yeah, there are actually two Samirs in this panel, and they don't look alike, so that will help. So as Manoj said, we have Manoj, we have Reddy, and we have a whole set of luminaries here. This is really a call for help. Before we go to the next slide, we have great industry participation from the people that you can read on the slide, but we really do need your help to take it to the next level. And clearly what we are trying to do is we are trying to build out solution blueprints for software defined memory or composable memory systems, the new name. Figure out as the first step as to where do we have gaps, and then also need your help in building out infrastructure that we'll talk about to be able to demonstrate these use cases in a tangible manner so that the rest of the world can follow. Manoj, can I get your help? So really, as Manoj talked about in his opening statement, we have three work streams, three primary work streams, and the first of these work streams is focused on local memory expansion, and there were some really great talks, very informative talks on local memory expansion and how it is being orchestrated from the hardware plane to the OS plane to the application plane. And we as a group here, among all the companies, have looked at three primary use cases: database caching, virtualization, AI/ML. But we think there are many other use cases here, and we need your help to build out the solution blueprints for all the other use cases that you see emerging with software-defined memory or CMS, composable memory systems. What is particularly exciting about this is that as this group comes together, and this group has been together for the last 1+ years, every week talking about stuff, we start to see what capabilities are missing in the hardware ecosystem that will create more economic value, fungibility, possibilities that Mahesh talked about. And while we are all representing fairly big companies, here is the process by which we can fire up innovation to say there are critical capabilities missing, and we stop there and let the imagination take place from there. The second piece of it is there are missing, as Samir R talked about very eloquently, we are missing some specifications. Now we are a small team here, and we need your help to first identify what may be missing in the specifications. And three areas come into mind. First one is form factor. Many people talked about form factor. The second one associated with the form factor is thermal. The third one is the device management plane. I was talking to a lot of people from the CXL committee today morning, and everybody agreed that the big users may actually have different requirements for device management, and we need to make sure that there's a common thread or a common spec that comes through device management. But please remember that our first job is to find or identify the missing gaps. How we close the missing gaps in the specs is something that we will need to think about and figure out how we get to closing or writing specs. Then the software ecosystem, great commentary from VMware, Intel, and Microsoft today. And we have to look at software platform readiness. As I was hearing all the commentary, what struck me was everybody's taking hot and cold page detection as guaranteed. I don't know of any efficient way to do hot and cold page detection right now. Nor do I know of algorithms that can do it in hardware. So This is the kind of conversations we want to have, is some of the stuff that we are taking for granted, is it really feasible and possible for horizontal deployments? Software and hardware integration gaps, you understand this as well as me. This is about new memory types appearing. Rekha talked about DRAM plus NAND or CXL SSDs. So where do we have gaps in orchestrating the hardware and the software planes more completely? And then the last thought here, which I do want you to ponder on, is, open source benchmarking. For some of the primary use cases, how do we as a community, as all the hardware that is getting developed by Intel and Samsung and Micron and all these companies, as it comes together, how do we allow for consistent horizontal operation without having open source benchmarks, right? And this requires a new class of benchmarks. And this has to be a focus of how we need your help to be able to contribute benchmarks, sustain them, keep them relevant so that the greater community can use it, because we are convinced that these benchmarks are actually very critical to exposing gaps in the rest of the full stack, right? So that gives you a flavor of why your participation was so important. If you feel compelled with everything that you've heard today, please reach out to Manoj, and we would welcome your participation into this working group. Manoj will now talk about the rest of the two work streams.
Let's see. As we see, in general, the work that we are looking at is going to be from the work streams point of view, from how the use cases, as we talked about. And I'm going to go through all the details. We have been at the end of the long day today. But let me give you, and that's a whole chart. I don't want to scare you off. Local memory subsystems, pooled memory subsystems, and systems and switch memory fabrics. These are the three main streams that the work will be. Is being planned right now. As we start and join together and we start discussing, let's look at basically what is the most logical way, because eventually what we're going to look for is basically what are the specifications that we come out, what are the common specifications that help all of us to adopt the things from hardware perspective, software perspective, tools, orchestration, or many other things that we have to look from integration perspective for the benchmarks and metrics. So all of these frontiers, what Samir Mittal calls here, are essentially going to be these use cases perhaps may have a timeline associated, but maybe there are some specific differences from the adoption perspective, but then there are going to be a lot of commonalities. So what specs will use commonly and what will be independently, that's something that we'll start working and talking together. There are many people who have started already working on these projects. They have been working on from adoption perspective and also from development perspective. This is a place now we can start coming together to build the blueprints, build the hardware configuration from mechanical, hardware, electrical, thermal perspective, what kind of configuration differences we have, what kind of commonalities, and let's come out with something that is common for all of us so that we can start adopting. So this is the work stream. Again, I'm not going to go through all that whole table that we have been working on, but appeal is really for all of you to join this. If you're adopting, if you're developing, if you're contributing in any way, please let's join hands and let's make sure that we can develop it for the whole community together, rather than having different solutions being developed in a small fragmented fashion. So with that, I think we have a lot of work to be doing together. What I'm going to do as a next step, I think, Reddy and Samir, I'm thinking Michael Zill is here. He is from Community Director for OCP. As we transition from being a software-defined memory FDI project, as we transition into sub-project for OCP under server track, we want to know what does it mean? How do you join? So if I can request Michael to walk us through that.